Hey, and welcome to the Drive and Dish podcast. We're here for January the 2nd, a big slate of college basketball games today, so we got a lot to go through. First up, we'll go over our January the 1st slate. Dynamite David went 2-3 overall. Losses with St. Pete -4.5 versus Canisius. Winner with Arkansas Little Rock -3.5 versus Texas Arlington. Cleveland State -3.5 versus IUPUI was a loss. Marshall +5.5. Marshall +1.5 versus Louisiana Tech was a loss, and Rice +2.5 versus UT San Antonio was a winner. That makes him 2-3 on the day, 26-33-1 overall on the year. I went 1-1 with a small slate of picks. UL Lafayette -2.5 was a winner versus Texas State. Georgia Southern -3.5 versus South Alabama was a loser. So what do we got today? We got a very big slate of games, and I got a whole lot of picks for that big slate. But first, we'll go in with Dynamite David's picks for the day. He likes Clemson -4.5 versus the Miami Hurricanes, Purdue +8.5 versus the Illinois Fighting Illini, the Rice Owls +1.5 versus UT San Antonio once again, LSU +1.5 versus Florida, Iowa -2.5 versus Rutgers, Kansas -4.5 versus the Texas Longhorns. So those are our man Dynamite David's 6 picks on the day. We'll see how he does. All right. To me, I have 8 total picks on the day. I'm going to start out with Missouri plus the 7.5. They let me down this week. We'll see if they can bounce back here. This Arkansas, another test to see if that they're legit this year. If they win this one, I think I'm going to have to cave in and say Arkansas is legit. They went to Auburn, had a pretty easy win there. We'll see if they can come back home and handle a pretty solid Mizzou's team. But we're going to ride Missouri plus the 7.5. Next up, we're going with Hofstra -9.5 versus William and Mary. Hofstra 4-3 on the year. With tough losses to Rutgers, Iona, and St. Bonaventure. So they have pretty good losses and a really solid win versus Richmond. We think they'll go in and blow out a pretty poor William and Mary team here. So Hofstra -9.5. Next up, we're going with East Carolina -1.5. We took against Tulane earlier in the week versus Central Florida and came out ahead. We're going to ride East Carolina, who has had a great start to the season, 7-1. Their only loss being versus SMU. So we think they'll go down to New Orleans and handle Tulane pretty good, pretty low spread. So let's see if East Carolina and the Pirates can go down to New Orleans and handle Tulane minus the 1.5. Next up, we're going to ride Tulsa plus the 5.5. We still don't think they're getting respect after a big win during the week over a really, really good Houston team. Tulsa has a couple tough losses to start the year to TCU, South Carolina, and Wichita State. But in the last couple weeks, they've beaten Memphis and Houston. So I think they're starting to come around, and Frank Haith has those guys playing well. And I think Cincinnati right now is getting a little too much respect. They're on a 4-game losing streak. So the plus 5.5 seems pretty good to me here. So Tulsa plus the 5.5. Next up, North Dakota -2.5 versus UMKC. We think UMKC will struggle going up to North Dakota during the weekend. North Dakota's had a slow start to the season, only 1 win over South Dakota, but they played a pretty solid schedule. Their only really bad loss is a Dixie State loss, but that was on the road. This is their first true home game, so we look for North Dakota to get right at home versus UMKC in this game here with a pretty low spread at 2.5 for a pretty good home game here. Next up, we're going to ride the Bonnies of St. Bonaventure playing Richmond plus 5.5 for St. Bonaventure. Really think this will be a really, Really, really good game. Really excited to watch this one. Big A-10 matchup. Like the way the Bonnies have played this year. Good wins versus Akron and Hofstra. Those are two of the top teams in the MAC and A-10. And we just think Richmond will struggle this week. Had a good win during the week versus Davidson. We think this will be a tight, close game. I really like St. Bonaventure's as a sleeper in the Atlantic 10 right now. The Bonnies coming off a tough loss, but a close loss to Rhode Island, 63-57. So we think they'll bounce back here and put up a tough fight versus St. Bonaventure's and cover that 5.5. Next up, we're going to Central Arkansas, minus the 3.5 versus McNeese State. Now, at first glance, you'll see this and see Central Arkansas is 1-7, but they have really, really played a tough schedule. Memphis, Little Rock, St. Louis, Arkansas, Mississippi State, and Baylor. So they deserve to be 1-7. They would be nowhere near favored in any of those games. Their win, Champion Christian, they won 92-28. So I think this Central Arkansas team is a little better than what the spread is, because you see McNeese State and see their 6-3 record, but they've picked up a bunch of wins versus Division II teams. They've played Nebraska, Stephen F. Austin, and Louisiana Lafayette and lost all those games. So we think going to Central Arkansas has the advantage here and is the better team. So we like the minus 3.5 versus Central Arkansas. Next up, we're going to ride the Rutgers Scarlet Knights to win at home. As long as Rutgers is getting points at home, I'm going to take them. They have been a dominant home team the last 2 years. We look for that to continue, and we look for them to pick up a win here versus a porous Iowa defense. Should be a really great game on this Saturday, a really entertaining one to watch. But we like Rutgers plus the 2.5 at home for their home dominance to continue. And lastly, we're going to take Old Dominion minus 1.5 versus FIU. They lost the other day. Strange loss. Their only two other losses before that were Maryland and VCU. They look to be a pretty solid team, so a strange loss versus FIU. We look for them to bounce back. This FIU team is 7-2, but they have some weird losses to North Florida and Georgia Southern. So we think they'll sort of be hot and cold, and we look for them to come up cold today, that's for sure. So that's the last of my picks, Old Dominion minus 1.5. We'll move on to the NBA. We had a decent night, 2-1 yesterday. So we're starting to get on a little bit of a roll. We aren't completely and utterly terrible in the NBA. We start out with the Washington Wizards. Finally got off the schneid and got us a win, minus 1.5 versus Minnesota. The Bucks easily covered the 14.5 versus Chicago, and the Denver Nuggets continue to struggle. Minus 4.5 versus Phoenix was a loss. 2-1 on the day, 18-14 so far on the year. I got 3 NBA picks today. I'm going to start out with the Charlotte Hornets plus 9.5 versus the Philadelphia 76ers. Charlotte's been a pretty plucky team this year. I look for this game to be a lot closer than that spread appears. So I think Charlotte will be able to hang with Philadelphia and cover that 9.5. Next up, we like Toronto, finally, to get a win here. Minus 1.5 versus New Orleans. Have not liked the way New Orleans has looked. And I think Toronto, whose defense has been really, really good so far this year, but has struggled to score, get off the schneid finally and cover this 1.5 points. And finally, we're going Cleveland Cavaliers, Atlanta Hawks over 233.5 points. Look for this to be a pretty heavy offensive game and go way over that 233 mark. So that's our NBA picks for the day. That's our show. Please follow greenlightnetwork.org for all your podcasts. Go to our Facebook page, like, and follow us. That's our show, and we're out.